Welcome to the City Steading podcast. I love doing that. Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Derica, and you are watching City Steading. This is a podcast, and the reason why I'm being very clear about that is because we had a comment on one of our podcasts complaining that we were talking too much.
Yeah, it's kind of what you do.
That's what you do in a podcast. So
basically, we answer some questions, we talk about various things, and try to entertain you and us at the same time.
So if you're watching this and you don't want to hear us talking, go watch something else.
Turn off the monitor, leave the speakers on?
I don't
know.
I don't mean to be rude. It's just that's what we're going to be doing.
This is what they are!
We're talking! Okay, so for this very first edition of 2020.
Yeah, today's New Year's Day. We're lamos. We work on New Year's Day.
Yeah, that's our life. We asked our Patreon group, the VIP City Steading Lounge, what questions they may have. And we actually got a couple.
I just read the first one.
We got one that was absolutely hysterical. Went on to this long triad because we love Monty Python. And so when I put the poll up to try to instill people to make questions for us to answer, I asked, what is your quest?
Oh.
And so that went on to the what is the unladen velocity, or what is the velocity of an unladen swallow, and of course then I had to say African or European, and it was wonderful and we all had a good laugh. So we're not going to answer those questions. You'll have to figure it out for yourself. But I suggest you don't include the coconut husk. All right, so our first question is, how many different notebooks do you have for all your recipes, and how are they separated? And this was sent to us by Joe Weymouth. Thank you, Joe, for the question.
The answer?
Here's the answer.
1. And I'm going to show you what's actually in this. I had to have a recipe book.
We researched endlessly to find the perfect journal for Brian that he thought was rustic enough but civilized enough for him to write things in, and he was going to document all these wonderful things. And then it ended up eventually just being me finding our notes that we tape to our vessels when we're fermenting them and just sticking them in there because he wasn't really writing anything down.
And that's it. That's all that's in there.
So is it organized? No. Is it beautifully handwritten? Not so much. It's kind of a mess. But at least we have some sort of documentation of the ones that we really enjoyed that we actually wrote anything down for.
Now the next question will be, why don't I? Here's why. First, I have an exceptionally good memory for things like this. I don't need to write it down. I already know what they all are. Also, I tend to not make the same thing more than once or twice. So, yeah, having recipes is good. And when we do finally publish our book, which is going to happen, yeah, I will have recipes in there. And that'll probably be my new notebook. I'll just keep that as my notebook. Because a lot of the time, I change recipes too. Like, I'll make something, and then I'll change it. Because I knew this didn't work or that didn't work. And I don't really have a problem with doing that. By the way, the whole memory thing wasn't a brag. I am that way about food, everything. I do not really keep notes of any of that stuff. Even in our photography business, I don't keep notes on how I did this or how I did that.
I, on the other hand, have to take notes of every single possible thing imaginative, because if I don't write it down on the calendar, on a sticky note, on a list, then it's just not going to happen. I'm not going to recall it at all. I have a horrible memory. So I'm in charge of all the calendar organization stuff because I'm the one who actually does write it down.
She's the one that actually looks at it, too.
Brian will just babble off all these things, and I'm just kind of like, what? I glaze over. It's very sad. But he does retain the information. I'm
weird.
He's an odd individual, but we love him so it's okay. So that's...
At least one person does.
That's the answer to that question. So thank you, Joe, for asking. Question number 2.
Before we do that, I would like to go on record and say I love the idea of keeping a journal like that. I really do, but I don't write at all. I type. So that disconnect didn't come through.
Yes. And is keeping a journal of your brewing, cooking, gardening, anything a
Abso-freaking-lutely.
good idea? What he said. Because that way you can take notes and you'll have a recollection of, oh, this one was awesome, but it worked better when it aged longer, or this one was awesome, but it tastes the best when it was young. And surprisingly enough, we have found that in our experience that some beverages are perfect when they're young, which seems counterintuitive, where others aren't good at all until in a couple years down the road.
And that brings up another point. It's great to keep a notebook of all of your stuff, but that means you actually have to keep notes. And that's where I just kind of didn't really do it. I have a notebook, though.
It's pretty.
It's awesome. I love it.
All right, question number 2. After a wine is done, what is a final gravity reading, or an FG, of a semi-sweet wine versus a sweet wine, generally speaking? And this is from Rick Butler, who is another patron, and he's in Mexico. Good question, Rick.
I'm going to answer this in 2 seconds. Depends. That is the truth, but now I'll actually give you some numbers. Now, these are very subjective, okay? It also depends on the brew, because a beer versus like a high ABV mead, different sweetness levels will appear differently to the palate, okay? So let's go, if we're talking about a typical wine or mead, somewhere in the 10 to 15% ABV range, okay? Because also, too, keep in mind you're reading as you go up in ABV, you can go much lower than 1.000 because alcohol weighs much less than water, and things get gray, confusing,
See how
and
this
difficult.
gets complicated?
Yeah, so it's a simple question, but it's not so simple. In general, dry is considered 1.000 or below. 1.010 to 1.000 is considered slightly sweet or even semi-sweet to some people, up to 1.020. Some people consider sweet. I'm in the semi-sweet range. Okay, 1.020 to me is still semi-sweet. Once you go past 1020 and you're into the 1030s and 1040s, now you're talking sweet. Okay, and I would even agree. 1030, 1040 is sweet. Once you go past 1040, it's not done. Okay, it's not. In most cases, 1040 and above is just, it's not finished yet. You can make things that sweet on purpose, and there are exceptions that work that way, like capsicum ale. My favorite capsicum ale of all time came out at 1050 or 1055. Actually, it was 1060. And it was beautiful. It was not overly sweet.
And that
just
makes
sweet
a
enough.
good point. This is, as Rick stated at the end there, generally speaking, it is a guideline, not so much a rule.
Right.
Because when you add different flavors in with the sweetness, then your palate is going to adjust and say, oh, that isn't as sweet. Where if those other flavors, like in the case of the capsicum ale, that spiciness, you're going to perhaps need more sweetness. Whereas if that spiciness wasn't there, it might seem like it's too sweet.
Something interesting, just to give a little perspective on it. Like if you're eating Mexican food, do you ever think, why is there always sour cream on Mexican food? It's to curb the heat. Thereby, you can make something a little hotter and use the sour cream to curb that. So you're getting the extra flavors in the heat, but you're also getting an extra flavor in the sour cream, which makes it all work better together. I hope that kind of made sense. In other words, if you make something that has a strong, strong flavor, you might want to balance that with sweetness to curb that a little bit. Or you might want it to come forward.
Whereas if you have something that's really fruity,
You might want more
the
fruit.
fruity part may make your brain read as sweetness
Right.
without actually needing a true sweetness level to make it
Like
taste sweet.
the Dragon Blood.
Yep.
Dragon Blood wine. That one, it's dry. It's totally dry, but it tasted wonderful because Tigger came to visit.
There's a cat.
Because that fruitiness came through, okay? Another thing that helps with sweetness and making it seem sweeter than it is carbonation. And that's why a lot of, that's why champagne is carbonated. Well, it's not really why, but carbonated champagne will not taste as dry as it is. Champagne is dry to dry in 99.9% of cases. So by carbonating it, they make it have the appearance of sweetness, even though it's really not. It's just easier on your tongue, and it makes you think it's sweeter than it is, so it doesn't come out so dry. Yeah, I think I answered that question.
Another thing besides, and that goes along with your brain thinking, oh, this flavor is sweet and this flavor is not sweet, is that each person's palate is different in regards to what they feel is sweet or unsweet,
Oh
regardless
yeah.
of those additional flavors. So giving you a number and saying this is sweet or this is semi-sweet is very subjective because your palate may say, no, it still tastes kind of dry to me, or
Actually,
whoa, that's way
I
too
can tell you
sweet.
without doubt, 1.100 is sweet. Argue with me.
Fight me.
You know, seriously. Change my mind.
Yeah, no, that's the
And point
zero zero.
point nine eight zero is dry. Other than, and I'm not even, I'm not trying to be a smartass.
No.
I'm perfect. It's just that's how subjective it actually is. But those two extremes, I mean, 0.980, I don't even know if that's possible. If you had like 40% alcohol, maybe. But the cats are chasing each other because they know that, you know, we're working. So that's what they do. You might not have even heard it, but Thor just smacked off the wall. He has no grip, and he's like this fat. So
And he's
yeah.
not very graceful.
Oh no, I don't know how he's a cat. Anyway, where was I?
The
Oh
full
yeah,
spectrum of
those
range.
two ranges there. I mean, 1.100 is just totally sweet, and the other number 0.980 is totally dry. If you don't find either of those sweet or dry, there's probably more wrong with your palate than with the numbers themselves. Okay, and I don't mean that to be offensive,
And
but that's how extreme
if you're
they
not
are.
familiar with gravity readings, that's like the extreme ends of the
Like-
range. So, yeah.
Like seriously, if you told me my final gravity reading was 1.100, I'd say I think you're using the term wrong because it's not a final gravity. That's a starting gravity. That's what I mean. It's so extreme that it's got to be sweet. I mean, you're basically drinking sugar water at that point. Which someone actually said something about, "Sir, you are great, but sugar is killing us." Okay, yeah, sugar is bad for you. You know what? So is alcohol. It's poison in your mind.
Yeah.
But anyway, if most of the sugar ferments out, we're talking very small amounts. Like at 1010 gravity, that means 10%. It's 10% more dense than water, which means very small amount of sugar in, you know, whatever volume of liquid. So there's not a lot of sugar in there anymore, no matter how sweet it really is.
So, being that this is the new year, we're going to finish off this podcast with our plans for the year. What are our plans for the year?
We're finishing already. We're only 13 minutes in.
We have no idea what the plans
I
are
have
for this
10
year.
more minutes, 20 more minutes to babble. Or not. We're not done yet. What are the plans for the
We're
year?
gonna edit all of that out because I don't even know what that was. So, Brian, there you go. Chop chop.
We don't edit these.
Oh, oops.
Plans for the new year. Well, I plan to do more Instagramming because I've neglected the City Steading Instagram forever. I did post a picture just today, though. We're going to do more podcast type things, which maybe we need to come up with a new name because it's not really a podcast. It's more like a Q&A or a, you know, one-on-one session. I think they're really neat and we enjoy them most of the time when we don't get all confused about what we're actually doing. We only had the two topics to talk about, so we're just going to come up with more stuff to say. So if you thought about tuning out, don't yet because this is like half done.
So, if you are not completely familiar with the City Steading universe, we have Brian's Instagram, which is the City Steading Instagram, my Instagram, which is the Derica Idux Instagram, and that is mostly the gardening stuff. That if you are a original OG City Steader, you know the original channel included gardening, brewing, and cooking, and all that good stuff together. So,
Speaking of that,
speaking of that, we may
we're thinking about it.
start a third channel, City Steading Grows, that would include all that gardening stuff back in, along with the chickens and all the other weirdness that I do outside. But right now, we've divided City Steading into CS Brews and CS Cooks. The podcast is for everybody. It just happens to be
I think
posted on CS
we
Brews.
put them on the
but
Brews channel mostly because you know we have 50,000 people potentially watching the Brews channel and like 3,000 or less watching the Cooks channel, which is saddening to me.
we also have a City Steading website that is all inclusive of all things City Steading. We do
Our
have
store is there.
Yep, our store is part of that. We do have a City Steading page on Facebook, and we have a special super secret City Steading VIP group on Facebook, which is for our patrons only. We are thinking about reorganizing our tiers on Patreon.
Oh, we're not thinking about doing it. We're thinking of what we have to change them to.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's just we're not sure what yet.
We want to have more benefits for our patrons because
Make it make more sense for people.
they are really what helps support this channel and keep things going. Of course, you viewing this is helping the channel and keep it going. And any purchases you make through our store, whether it be merch or stuff from our Amazon affiliates, helps the channel keep going.
I want to talk about that a little bit too. In the early days, we didn't go into detail about the Amazon marketing stuff, but Amazon actually requires it. So I'm going to say this now, and this doesn't count as an end all, but just an explanation. The way Amazon marketing works is this. If you click on one of our links for the next 24 hours, anything that you purchase, we get a small commission. It does not cost you a thing extra. It'd be the same as if you went to Amazon.com and bought stuff. But we get a commission on everything that you buy, not just the item that you clicked through, okay? That's a critical thing. But it's very, very important that we let you know that we are Amazon affiliates. We do make money off of that. But I want to stress, it costs you nothing. Literally nothing. So if you were going to buy something anyway, use one of our links and we get a little bit of a commission. And everybody's happy.
And all the things that we have in our store, we have personally tried out ourselves. You may, if you've watched the categories in our store, they keep changing because if we find a new product that we like better than an old product, that old product is gone and a new product is in there because we want you to get the benefit of our experience.
And if a product that was in there pisses me off, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
Some things that might be coming to the cooking channel is we talked about maybe changing the name of it. We talked about making different changes. And we realized, you know what? The name of it really doesn't matter. It's the ethos and the method and things like that. We've kind of gotten away from true city steading on the Cooks channel, especially because it's mostly just how to cook things at home that are really good and like stuff that you might get in a restaurant or you might order takeout. How to make that.
We found lots of people in our audience are intimidated by lots of things that are actually really easy to cook.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to give you is show you, hey, this isn't that hard. It's easy. Here, let's show you how. And that way you can do it on your own without
That's
that
how
fear.
I learned to cook. I jumped right in with both feet and just, okay. I actually made very little that was bad because it's just not that hard. If you do a little bit of research and a little bit of experimentation, cooking is actually really simple.
But even taking that in consideration, cooking is such a vast...
And that's where the channel is actually having a little trouble there because it's not growing as fast as we'd like it to. And I'm not really bitching to you guys, just letting you know what's going on. Because, you're our people, you're our supporters, so I want you to know. The Cooks channel is more of a labor of love for us than anything. It costs us money to make, really. We don't make a dime off of it at this point. So it's generally a case of, hey, what do you want to make for dinner tonight? Okay, that's what we're going to videotape this week because it's just easier that way. It's a lot more work than the Bruce channel, like a lot more. We have more camera angles, more audio difficulties, more channels to work with, if you will. And the editing, it's so much harder. But if I could only have one channel, I will be totally honest, it would be a cooking channel. That is what I really like. I don't know how Derica feels. I think she'd say the same thing though. She'd have a gardening channel. She'd be up to her elbows in dirt every day. So those are the two things that we would love to do, but because of the way things work and because of audience appeal and things like that, we do it the way we do it. Be ready to see some different things on the Cooks channel, though. Some more off-the-wall, interesting ideas. We were trying to go with like more of a nerds vibe, but I don't know that using that term and going really that way is right. So instead, it's just whatever pops into our heads, that's what we're going to make. And you know what? That's worked well enough for us so far, so that's how we're going to keep doing it. Same thing for brews. I mean, we're gonna play around with some of the Star Trek and Star Wars drinks, though. I really want to, and the reason we haven't done it yet is because I'm still working on them. I don't want to let out any secrets, but we have some ideas. We're just finalizing them and fine-tuning them into other things.
We will preface that, which I think we already prefaced in a previous podcast, but our brews will be legitimate brews. They're not just going to be mixed drink cocktails.
Yeah, you call it Romulan ale, it's going to be an ale. Not some mixed drink stuff. What the heck is that?
There is another thing
Uh-oh.
that may or may not happen.
I didn't
and
do
it's mostly a how, but most of you know we have a multitude of cats that we share
Oh boy.
our abode with, and many of you also enjoy the company of a four-legged furry creature, and so you have interest in those, and we're cool with that, but they don't really fit into brewing, and
I mean, you could brew with them, but
we don't want to cook.
Yeah.
No. So
I don't know. Every once in a while, I don't want to cook it so much as
So we're thinking of a new channel,
City Steading Cats.
which isn't going to be City Steading. It's just going to be something quirky and silly and fun, all about our cats
In our free time.
and our copious amount of free time.
Because I don't know if you knew, we actually have a third channel
Yes.
all about photography that we've neglected badly.
Yeah.
It's Brianized, actually.
So these are some things that we've been pondering. We may find a way to implement them in 2020. Right now, we still aren't sure because we want to keep our release
Yeah.
schedule continuous for City Steading Brews and City Steading Cooks, which is a release every week, at least one.
Tuesday and Friday.
Tuesday for cooks, Friday for brews, with the occasional spontaneous extra
I think we've done it like twice.
thrown in there just for flavor.
And the podcasts get pretty much done whenever.
Yeah, podcasts are extra.
We should call it a video cast. Video podcast.
Video podcast.
That's what somebody else does.
Sure.
I'm stealing it.
It's ours
They
now.
put it out there. It's ours.
Also, the merch store. I'm working on more designs. We're going to reintroduce some old designs, give them a fresh look. So neither one of us are wearing any of our original designs right now, but that will be updated. And if you're a Patreon, you may get some special discounts to
Oh yeah, we're
get
figuring
some
out
extra
how
good
to do
stuff. We're also gonna have a contest,
that. We've been saying it for a while.
but it's gonna happen. So
Maybe that's what we can do on the podcasts.
if you are a patron, keep looking because you may be a winner.
Okay, so we answered questions.
We did.
We talked about what we might be doing.
Yep.
What I'd like to say though is, if there's things that you'd like us to do, say it in the comments. We answer them. I
Yes.
mean, I look at them all the time.
Yeah, and
and please don't tell us that we talk too much.
And we do
Because
take
that's what this is about.
suggestions. So
Yeah, we really do. We're open
if
to
there's
suggestions.
some brew thing that you want to see, if there's some cooking thing you want to see, if there's something that we haven't gone over that you are like, hey, I'm really interested in this and I'd like to know, even if it doesn't work in our channels, we might be able to fit it into a
Oh,
podcast.
by the way, ginger ale is coming. Non-alcoholic.
That's right.
Ginger ale. It's going
Kid-
to be on the Brews channel.
Kid-friendly.
Because people have actually asked for stuff that they can make with their kids. Hey, you know what? We haven't done a lot of those. And we debated, does that go on cooks? Does that go on brews? It's still a brew, sort of. So I'm putting it there. Also, here's a question for you guys. I want to do more coffee videos. I've held off because I wasn't really sure where to put them. And that's kind of a conundrum for me. So, I want opinions. Should coffee videos be on the Brews channel or on the Cooks channel? Let me know. That way we know where to put them.
Your opinion matters.
See that? You just formed the future of the City Steading universe. That's all I got, guys. We're reaching at this point. But thanks so much if you listened this far. And we'll see you in like a month. Well, actually, you'll see us like in a couple of days because this video is, But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
as always, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.